The reaction to With Love Megan Season 2 was so bad, even I forgot to do a follow-up video on it yesterday.
Who wants this stuff? Well, I mean, what a load of crap. What's it for?
Is Meghan and Harry's Netflix deal worth the paper it's printed on?
Taylor Swift stole her announcement thunder.
And there she is again, cutting, not just cutting, slicing bread, slicing fruit, slicing vegetables. Basically, she spends most of this show slicing.
The reaction to With Love, Meghan Season 2 was so flat that many wondered if it was even worth following up on. Audiences were left asking, who is this really for? The lukewarm response quickly reignited bigger questions about Meghan and Harry's multi-million-dollar streaming partnership.
Again, a swirling mass of very average-looking food, salads, crumbling cheese on them, pastries.
Is the deal as solid as once advertised, or has it quietly become little more than paper value? Behind the press releases celebrating a renewal, the buzz told a different story. The official narrative was framed as a triumph, as though the Sussexes were firmly back in Netflix's good graces, but whispers inside the industry suggest otherwise.
If you came up with the picture of an annoying, insufferable white woman, it would be Meghan Markle, even though she's not.
Instead of a celebratory extension, this arrangement may be more of a cautious reset, a probation period disguised as a win. On paper, the couple still holds that coveted first-look agreement, meaning Netflix will hear their pitches before other platforms, but insiders hint the structure has changed dramatically.
It's about that ego, isn't it? The narcissism. She needs a mug on the front pages of magazines. She needs to be receiving these fake awards and have people falling.
Gone are the eye-watering lump sums that once defined headlines about a $100 million mega deal. Instead, this updated agreement leans heavily on strict deliverables, deadlines, and proof that their content can keep viewers engaged from beginning to end. Industry veterans describe this kind of first-look arrangement as both an opportunity and a trap. When a creator consistently delivers, it can be powerful. But it also means every pitch, every budget release, and every creative decision is tied to hard performance metrics. The whispers say Netflix's attitude is no longer about potential, it's about proof. The new direction allegedly arrived quietly. No major announcements declared the shift. Publicly, the focus was on warm, uplifting projects, documentaries with a humanitarian lens, and even a return to lifestyle content. But behind the curtain, sources suggest the bar has been raised dramatically. Now, the couple must not only produce, they must deliver measurable results. This change isn't just about whether a release trends for a day or two. Netflix, like other streaming platforms, survives on watch time, on how many viewers stay tuned from the first scene to the last credits. According to insiders, Meghan and Harry's contract may even tie future opportunities to completion rates and audience retention. That kind of pressure transforms the creative process. It's no longer about telling a story, it's about engineering it to keep viewers glued to the screen. The most striking part of the deal, however, is what sources describe as a prove-it clause. Unlike hidden technicalities buried in pages of legal jargon, this line is said to be explicit. Success will be measured by audience performance, and only then will additional budgets or projects be approved. Deliver a hit, and doors open. Miss the target, and momentum stall. Insiders claim the targets are not modest either. They're described as ambitious, almost aggressive, designed to test whether the Sussex brand can truly hold attention beyond a release day spike. The challenge, then, is not simply to generate buzz, but to sustain it. Streaming companies know that hype without long-term retention quickly becomes a loss. For the Sussexes, this clause changes everything. Every project becomes a test, every trailer a referendum on their continued relevance. Creative decisions are filtered through the lens of audience data. Will this plotline hold attention? Will this edit keep people from clicking away? The stakes of missing the mark have never been higher. Some in Hollywood see this as Netflix's way of regaining control after what many viewed as underwhelming returns from the couple's early projects. While initial releases generated headlines, they didn't all produce blockbuster viewership. The prove-it clause ensures future projects must perform, whether through tighter pacing, bigger reveals, or calculated celebrity cameos. There are even reports of quarterly performance reviews, giving Netflix an opportunity to halt or adjust upcoming projects based on numbers. For Meghan and Harry, this means working under the constant pressure that the next episode or even the next scene could determine the future of the partnership. It creates a climate where every move, public or private, feels strategic. Appearances, interviews, and photo opportunities take on new significance when they're tied to building momentum for releases. One Hollywood source summed it up bluntly: if they deliver, Netflix will double down. If they stumble even once, the safety net disappears. But the prove it requirement isn't the only potential pitfall buried in the agreement. Alongside it, insiders suggest is another powerful clause, the so-called exit window. On the surface, it sounds like a harmless safety mechanism. In practice, it could act like a trapdoor. According to rumors, this clause gives Netflix the option to withdraw from the partnership far sooner than most expect, possibly within months if the first projects underperform. That would mean the couple's upcoming releases aren't simply opportunities to tell stories, they're pass or fail tests. Each title could become a make or break moment for their future in stream. For a brand so closely tied to the prestige of their Netflix partnership, even the suggestion of an early exit could be damaging. The risk isn't purely financial either. There's a reputational element at play. Imagine the fallout if reports surfaced that Netflix exercised its exit option. The image of being in demand, in control, and aligned with a top-tier platform could unravel almost overnight. That's why, according to insiders, every step from the projects chosen to the timing of public appearances feels like part of a deliberate strategy to prove their staying power. For now, at least publicly, everything looks polished and steady, but beneath the surface, the stakes are high. Each upcoming project is not just another show, it's a referendum on the future of the Sussex brand in entertainment. The exit window clause is where this deal becomes even more precarious. Contracts of this scale almost always include outs, but what makes this one notable, according to those who've seen its language, is the timing. Netflix reportedly holds the right to walk away in as little as 6 months if benchmarks aren't met. That turns every release into a make-or-break event. The public is told a story of stability. Meghan and Harry remain in the Netflix family, forging ahead with fresh projects. But if the behind-the-scenes whispers are accurate, then the couple isn't building on a fortress. They're walking a tightrope. Every new documentary, series, or special has to justify not just its budget, but the very continuation of their contract. Observers point out that such an arrangement flips the dynamic. At the start of their Netflix relationship, it was the Sussex who brought star power. The platform courted them aggressively, offering huge sums for exclusive rights to their vision. Now, it seems the power has shifted. The contract suggests that the Sussex brand has to prove itself worthy of staying, rather than Netflix proving its commitment to them. The logic for Netflix is clear. In an era where competition among streaming services is brutal, lavish deals with celebrities only work if the numbers back them up. Audiences need to stay hooked. Buzz has to translate into hours watched, and above all, projects must stand out in a crowded catalog. With so many new shows launching every week, attention is the most valuable currency. For Meghan and Harry, the pressure is unique. Few others in the entertainment industry carry the same kind of global scrutiny. Every announcement they make, every appearance they give, becomes part of a larger narrative. Are they succeeding, or are they faltering? When performance clauses are tied to that narrative, the line between public perception and private reality gets blurred. The question isn't just whether their projects will attract audiences, it's whether they can overcome skepticism. Their first documentary series drew strong initial viewership, but struggled to sustain discussion beyond its release window. Their lifestyle venture sparked headlines, but not all were flattering. To keep their contract alive, the next projects must hit both culturally and commercially. Industry insiders speculate that this is why their upcoming slate looks so carefully curated. Instead of broad, experimental content, the focus seems narrowed onto proven formats, inspirational documentaries, human interest storytelling, and content tied directly to Meghan and Harry's personal brand. In theory, this approach plays to their strength, but it also means there's no room for error. If one of these calculated moves misses, the consequences could be swift. The exit window also changes how their creative process is viewed by Netflix executives. What might once have been interpreted as artistic exploration may now be seen as risk-taking. In this context, hesitation or delays aren't just creative hurdles, they're potential breaches of contract expectation. This explains, according to sources, why projects that seemed in early development months ago are now being fast-tracked. Some in Hollywood argue that this is less about artistry and more about survival. They note that the Sussex reputation in the entertainment industry hinges on proving they're not just a momentary headline, but consistent contributors to the streaming landscape. To do that, they'll need to demonstrate growth, better pacing, broader appeal, sharper editing, and above all, stories that hold audiences from start to finish. It's a tall order, especially because, behind the glamour of red carpets and photo ops, the couple is essentially operating under a corporate scoreboard. Every week, Netflix reviews viewership dashboards, every chart, minutes watched, drop-off points, completion rates, tells a story. For most creators, those charts decide whether a show gets renewed. For Meghan and Harry, they decide whether a multi-million-dollar partnership survives. That's what makes this contract so different. It's not simply about one project working or failing. It's about proving an entire brand has lasting value. If they succeed, the rewards could be immense. Netflix would double down, offering bigger projects, broader creative control, and potentially a long-term pipeline of content. But if they fall short, the contract's exit clause ensures Netflix can step away almost instantly, without the reputational fallout of a messy public split. To the outside world, the contract still looks glamorous. It's marketed as a renewed partnership with endless potential, but those familiar with its details describe it more like a stress test. Instead of celebrating a guaranteed future, Meghan and Harry are locked into proving themselves in real time, under constant evaluation. For now, they project confidence. Public statements emphasize passion, vision, and the importance of storytelling. But behind the scenes, deadlines loom, expectations climb, and the pressure only grows heavier. The next project isn't just content. It's a verdict, and the stakes, everything's their creative legacy, their financial security, and their position within Hollywood, all ride on whether their next release can keep audiences watching. One success could open every door, one failure could slam them shut. If there's one thing this deal highlights above all, it's how fragile reputations can be in Hollywood. Just a few years ago, Meghan and Harry were positioned as untouchable. Their every move commanded headlines. Their interviews sparked global debate, and their personal brand was synonymous with disruption. But in entertainment, momentum is everything. The industry remembers your last project more vividly than your first. And right now, the conversation surrounding the Sussexes has shifted. What was once a narrative of freedom and reinvention is being replaced by questions of relevance. Are they still commanding global attention? Are audiences tuning in for the story, or out of curiosity that's already fading? These questions matter, because Netflix isn't in the business of nostalgia. It's in the business of keeping subscribers. Streaming platforms don't think in terms of legacy, they think in terms of engagement. It doesn't matter what you represented 5 years ago. What matters is whether millions of people will sit down tonight, click on your series, and stay long enough to watch it through. That cold reality is why the Sussex contract looks less like a safe harbor and more like a proving ground. The irony is stark. Meghan and Harry left the institution of the monarchy in search of independence and autonomy. They wanted to control their narrative, to build their own platform away from the rigid expectations of royal duty. Yet now, in Hollywood, they find themselves bound by a different kind of institution, one that tracks success, not with tradition or symbolism, but with numbers on a dashboard. Every creative choice becomes a calculation. Do they take risks, knowing one misstep could jeopardize their contract, or do they play it safe, even if that leads to criticism for being predictable? That balancing act is at the heart of their next move. Some close to the couple suggest they're acutely aware of this pressure. Meghan's new projects lean heavily into empowerment and personal storytelling, territory where she's most comfortable. Harry, meanwhile, focuses on issues he's long been vocal about, from mental health to veterans advocacy. By centering content on their personal identities, they're betting that authenticity will resonate more deeply than spectacle. But authenticity alone won't secure the deal. Hollywood audiences demand more than sincerity, they demand entertainment. And here lies the core challenge, translating deeply personal themes into content that competes with the endless flood of thrillers, dramas, and reality shows, clogging streaming menus. Insiders note that Netflix executives are watching carefully for whether Meghan and Harry can craft stories that travel globally. It's not enough for their projects to trend in the UK or the US. They need to capture attention in Latin America, Europe, Asia. That's the benchmark for true streaming success, and it's a benchmark few celebrities-turned-producers ever achieve. The skeptics, of course, are circling. Critics argue that the couple overestimated their staying power. They suggest that after the initial wave of fascination, audiences are less interested in the Sussexes as entertainers than they are in the Sussexes as a cultural sideshow. If that's true, then no contract clause or strategic curation will save them, but others see this as an opportunity. They argue that the couple is still in the early stages of defining themselves outside the royal orbit, that this pressure, though intense, might actually force them to refine their voice, to cut through noise with sharper, more resonant work. In that sense, the contract isn't just a trap, it's a challenge, one that could push them toward their best creative output. Yet, the danger, however, is that the pressure becomes suffocating. Because when every release is seen as a verdict, failure isn't just failure, It's existential, and Hollywood is brutal when it senses weakness. If Netflix pulls the plug, other platforms will take note. Deals with other distributors, collaborations with major studios, even speaking engagements, all would suddenly carry the shadow of doubt. This is why the language of the contract matters so much. Exit windows, performance clauses, deliverable deadlines, they don't just govern paperwork. They shape careers, and in this case, they could determine whether Meghan and Harry remain players in Hollywood or fade into cautionary tales. For Netflix, the calculus is simple. If the numbers add up, the deal continues. If not, the contract offers a clean escape route. For Meghan and Harry, the calculus is anything but simple. Their careers, their reputation, their independence, all hinge on every chart, every rating, every project. The public may never see the dashboards or the raw data, but every decision, every headline, every sudden shift in their strategy will tell the story, and that story will be measured, not in promises or ambition, but in performance. For now, the clock is ticking. Projects are in development, cameras are rolling, deadlines are set. The couple has little choice but to deliver, and to do so under more scrutiny than most in Hollywood could endure. Their gamble is that this time, the work will speak louder than the skepticism. But in this industry, even the loudest voices can be drowned out by silence. And silence for Meghan and Harry would be the one outcome they cannot afford.